Let it go この決意 Unbreakable 愛する世界に不正なアクセス許さないぜターゲットロックオン今すぐ出動 It's moving time 飛び込め危機の最前線シャットダウン完了特命戦隊ゴーダスター
It's time to review Crash Tag Team Racing for the PlayStation 2. Like the previous Crash Kart Racer Nitro Kart, Tag Team Racing was swapped from one developer to another during development for some odd reason. Originally, Tag Team Racing was going to be made by Trailers Tales Oxford, who made my all-time favorite Crash game, Twinsanity. But for some reason was given to Radical Entertainment, presumably because of the huge success that developer had with The Simpsons Hit and Run. Tag Team Racing is notable for being the last game before the infamous character redesign, and is seen as awful by some and average by most. But is it really? Well, let's find out. The game takes place in Motorworld, a theme park which has recently been christened as Godforsaken since the Power Gems which run Motorworld's major attractions have been stolen, and the park's owner, Ebenezer von Clutch, is particularly screwed since the Black Power Gem, his life support system, has also been stolen, meaning that he'll die in a few hours or just shut off since he's actually a robot. He's so desperate at this point that he'll give the deed to the park to anyone who can bother helping him. And even though the plot kind of reminds me of Knuckles Chaotix to make me think that this is going to be a sequel, my hopes are sadly dashed when Crash, Coco, and Crunch drive right into the park as Cortex, N.Gin, and Nina are chasing them in an attempt to kill them. And Grouper's glad about this since he loves their games. Yeah, I don't get it either. Anyway, he asks them to find the Power Gems in the Black Power Gem, and as a reward, he'll give the winner the deed to the Motorworld. So obviously the villains are going to use this as some sort of base, and the heroes are going to use it for whatever reason that we're never told. So the chase is on to see who can find all the gems and claim the deed to the park. The objective of the game is very simple. Collect all the Power Gems so you can eventually get the Black Power Gem and win the game. You first start off in a hub world where you can go to the 5 worlds, 2 of which have god-awful puns. The worlds in this game are Mystery Island, Happily Ever Faster, Tyrannosaurus Rex, yes, Rex is spelled W-R-E-C-K-S instead of R-E-X, Toontown, and Astroland. Cringeworthy puns aside, you get to do 2 things in the game: racing and 3D platforming similar to Twinsanity, albeit much less linear. The platforming is relatively simple. You can still jump and double jump by pressing X, you can body slam by pressing circle while in the air, and spin by pressing square. However, unlike the last few games, you can't slide or crawl anymore. And in order to get the Power Gem in that area, you have to activate a jump pad which can only be unlocked via crystals. Crystals can be attained by finding them in secret spots, buying them from people via money, and taking part in vehicular challenges. Coins are essentially everywhere, in crates, in the background, and even in enemies, which are ninja penguins for some reason. I should also mention at this point that with no Wumpa Fruit or Aku Aku, Crash can't die in this game, which may turn off those who think that not being able to die means the game's too easy for some silly reason. Also, you can now interact with people, and, well, I didn't bother as the voice clips would have taken a while to load, so I don't know how that works out. And activate gags where Crash kills people and where Crash can die, with the latter being known as the horribly named dioramas. Dioramas mainly consist of Crash spinning into people or explosives, pressing buttons, hanging about certain signs, and jumping into hazards or interacting with people. And, well, they're mostly okay, but they feel like a wasted opportunity for dark humor. You can also buy costumes for certain characters, but I'll get on to my thoughts on them in a minute. Now to talk about the racing aspect of the game. There are 15 tracks throughout the whole game, 3 for each area. Although instead of kart racing like Crash Team Racing or Nitro Kart, Tag Team Racing focuses on combat racing similar to Jak X, which is probably bad luck since it came around more or less the same time as Jak X. The main new feature of the racing is the Clash ability, where you can fuse with an opponent racer and get a turret on your fused car, where your partner can kill opponents with it and help you win the race. But you can control the turret and let your new partner drive if you feel like it. But be very, very careful, because a lot of the time, just as you're about to finish the race, the partner can split off you and win the race for themselves, which is very annoying. And now we get to the part where we talk about the problems with Tag Team Racing, and Well, okay, most of these are just annoyances, but they are problems that I have with the game. As I said before, the dioramas feel like a wasted gold mine of black comedy and are just predictable and boring most of the time. The costumes are also very expensive, and the names just lie a lot of the time. For example, Realistic Crash would make one believe that it was like a realistic version of Crash, but no, it's just Skeleton. And probably most annoying of all, Classic Crash is actually just Crash in an Indiana Jones or exploring outfit, instead of how he looked in the PS1 titles, polygons and all, which would have been a very nice touch. And as I said before, your partner splitting off at the end of the race to win is just really annoying, especially at the end of a long track, and the platforming, I did like it, but it wasn't as exciting as it was in Twinsanity. My biggest problem with the game, though, was its comedy, which was way too pop culture referential, if that's even a phrase, and annoying. I mean, what big twat from Mars decided that Crunch should be a Mr. T parody? He's not even a good parody, he just does all the PSAs. I mean, do you see anything about Crunch that screams Mr. T, besides the giant muscles? I mean, if I was in charge here, and if I had to do that bloody Mr. T parody, I would make Crunch as badass as Mr. T was in those frigging Snickers commercials where he coming on a tank or a helicopter, forcing everyone to become badass in order to not die. Yeah, I just realized this has utterly nothing to do with this review whatsoever. Now to get on with it. I actually thought making the racing part more like combat racing was a pretty good idea, as it let the game stand on its own feet and not be compared to Mario Kart for once. And the clashing was actually a genius idea. And again, I did like the platforming, just not as much in other games, but it was very satisfying to explore all of the areas as fully as possible and getting all of the crystals in each hub area. My favorite world in the game is Tyrannosaurus Rex, because, okay, the pun is terrible, but the level is so huge and it takes a long time to explore every area, but it's unbelievably satisfying. And like with Crash Twinsanity, the music is composed by a cappella band Spiral Mouth, and while the music isn't as good as in Twinsanity, it's still good and pretty damn catchy. My favorite part of the game, however, was being able to blow up any and all characters in the game that annoyed me by using the turret in the racing sections. Crash Tag Team Racing is a decent game with catchy music, good and original vehicle sections, satisfying explorations, and being able to blow up the unfunny Mr. T knockoff formerly known as Crunch Bandicoot. However, most of the game's jokes are annoying, your partner can split off and win the race for themselves and be absolute dicks, and the platforming isn't as good as it was before. All in all, I give Crash Tag Team Racing a Sonic 06, meaning that it's actually kinda good. And in case you're wondering, I am not going to be reviewing Crash the Titans or Mind Over Mutant. And with that, I'll see you for my next video.